So basically this live is not something which I announced earlier. So I do not expect many of you to join. So I completely understand. So I was just looking at my YouTube schedule, and what I saw is that I have not posted any video for a while. And I thought, okay, it will be a good time to, go live, talk to you. So yeah, let's see. So meanwhile, what I'm going to do is we are going to work on a spider. And the idea that I want to show you is how we can export this to one XLSX file. Now, even though I'm going to talk about specifically XLSX file, the concept that I'm going to talk to you are going to apply to any other file format. They are going to apply to database. So if you know how to write data to any external storage, you should be able to write. So the idea is to basically get your concepts clear. All right. So let me hide my face and I want to start. Where's my browser? So here. So I want to start with Scrapy architecture diagram. Now I know that this Scrapy architecture diagram, if you have not looked at previously, so this is going to look very daunting, very confusing. So let's just focus on point number 8 right over here, right? So what is happening here is this is the end of your scraping cycle. So what is happening here is the items is the information that you have scraped, right? So whatever you are yielding from your spider, that is item, whether you are creating an item class or so whether you are creating item class and you are yielding that instance or you are simply yielding a dictionary, doesn't matter. Eventually everything is item and that item goes through item pipeline. Okay. So if you want anything to be manipulated or if you want to do anything with items, then this is where you have to use item pipelines. So that is what we are going to do today. Okay. So the project is not really important. So I just took one project that I created for some other purpose. So I'm going to remove this next page logic. So it's a very simple spider. Let me walk you through this. So I'm working with books2scrape.com. Okay. So very simple. And on the first page, there are 20 books, right? So what I'm doing here is I'm running a loop over this selector. So what is this selector? Let's copy this. Okay. And the benefit of live session is that, we can learn a few additional things. So let's see if we can learn few additional things. All right. So this is the wrapper. So whenever you want to work with multiple items, so what you should be doing is you should create a selector that is a wrapper over all the items. So in this case, this is a list item, li element, right, which contains every book. It can be a div, or if you're working with a table, it can be a tr as well, right? So it doesn't matter what kind of container is there, but whatever is repeating, you just create a selector for that. Okay. And what we are doing here is we are running a loop over the selector. So this response.xpath or response.css is going to give you a selector. So what is the benefit? The benefit is that you can apply additional XPath or additional CSS on top of that selector. So that's what I'm doing here. So let me probably close this and let's make this a little bit bigger. Yeah. So what I'm doing is I'm looking for the title, and this book title. If you come to this page, you will see that this title is actually, let's click on inspect. So here you can see that this title is actually, stripped down. So if I look for this element's text, it is just going to give me a light in the ... But the title tag, so this title tag contains this, not the title tag, but the title attribute of this anchor tag contains the complete book name. Okay. So this is one place, and if I remember correctly, at the alt of this image thumbnail. So yeah, so this image thumbnail, this alt attribute, this also contains the full name. So this is just a general idea that whenever you are scraping, you should be looking at the other information. So the information, that data that you're looking for can be anywhere, right? So in this case, yes, I actually collected or extracted this alt attribute, right? So this is my title, and the price is, this is the selector for the price. So this is simply, I'm just looking for the price color. Okay. So let's inspect this. So this is the P tag which contains this class price color. So we are looking for that price color, and this gives me the exact price. And I'm using a dictionary, and I've just used this notation because if I want to change it to a item class, I can simply, just change this part and write item. So this was the idea, and for this demonstration I have taken only title and price, and if you want you can take more items. For example, if you want to take this stock information, so let's add that as well. So in stock availability, in fact I'll leave that because there are a few more things that I want to talk about in the live session, so I'll leave this stock availability for the next session. Okay, so let's just focus on title and price. Okay, so let's open the terminal. Is the terminal here. So cd into books, and let's look at, okay, so maybe I can make this a little bit bigger. Yeah. So we have this simple spider. Okay. Now let's run the spider and verify what we are getting right now. So Scrapy crawl simple. So should scrape 20 items. So yes, we have 20 items scraped, and it's a very simple spider. So we are just getting title and price. Now, the idea is not how complicated the spider can be. The idea is how the pipelines work, right? So we just looked at the architecture diagram, and the items, they go through item pipelines as the last step. Okay. Now let's look at the pipelines. So if you open pipelines.py file, so this is what you will see, right? So there is this class books pipeline. There is a process item method, and this method simply returns the item by default. And by the way, so if we look at settings, so this is not the default settings. Okay, anyway, so let me, so what I'm going to do is, yeah, so do we need default settings? So let me quickly generate one more project so that we can copy that. Okay, Scrapy start project. I'm just calling it X because I just want the default settings. Okay, and where is the default settings? So cdx code settings. So I'm just taking the default settings which are generated. So basically I don't need everything actually. So in fact, I don't have to take everything. I'll just take this part. So these are basically the default settings. Okay, we don't have to take anything. So I'm just showing that when you create a project, so this is the default settings which is created, right? Now we have a lot of things commented out here, and one of them is the pipeline. So here, so if I uncomment, then you will see that now the default pipeline has become active. So by default, this is commented out. So that means that this pipeline, so this pipeline is not even active. And even if you want to activate it, you can just give this path in these settings and it will become active, but still it is doing nothing in the process item. So this is the at least one mandatory parameter, and this is blank. All right. Now I want to show you a few things. Now, first of all, I want to talk about what are the different things and what are the different methods that can exist in a pipeline. So process item that executes for every process, every item, sorry. So this executes for every item. So every time it receives an item, process item will execute. Now, apart from it, there are few other interesting methods. So the first is open spider. Okay, so this open spider will take self, of course, and spider. So this will execute only when the spider is opened. So this executes one time when the spider runs. Similarly, we have close spider. So the signature is similar. So this also executes when the spider closes. So this executes once, this executes once, all right? And this executes for every item, all right? With this in mind, so let's think about how do we create this Excel file. So first of all, Nawa, good evening. Good to see you here. So if you have any questions, you can ask, all right? So now, first of all, we need to understand how we are going to create this Excel file. So Excel file by default that is not supported, Python doesn't have a native functionality to create Excel file. So the solution is to use a third-party package, and this package that I like is this XLSX writer. So there is XLSX writer, this is one, and there is OpenPyXL. So these are the two commonly used packages which can be used to create this Excel file. So if you have a look at the documentation, so there are a lot of things that it can do, right? So if we look at, I want to go to the PyPy side, okay? So Python package index or PyPy, and there I'm going to search for, oops, it is a .org, not .com. Yeah, so Py, interesting. So pypy.org. All right, so this is the one, and let's search for this package name, which is XLSX writer, XLSX writer. Right? So we can see that this is a pretty mature project. So it's on version 3.02. So now this has basic instructions. So here we go. I'm going to zoom this up. So if we are not working in Scrapy and we are working outside Scrapy, so first of all, you need to import this XLSX writer, all right? Then you need to create a workbook, okay? So what is the workbook? So workbook is actually the entire XLSX file, okay? Then worksheet is that sheet 1, sheet 2, sheet 3 that is created by default, right? So you have to create first the workbook, and for creating the workbook object, all you need is the file name, all right? Then we have worksheet. Now to create the worksheet, all we need to do is use this add worksheet. Now we can think logically that these methods, these two lines are suitable for OpenSpider because this needs to be executed only once. All right. Then we have worksheet set column side. So this is not something that we are going to do. So if you want to use bold, then this is the format. So that also I'm going to ignore. Now this is where I want to focus. So worksheet.write, what this does is you give it the row index, okay, the column index and the value, and it will write that particular row, that particular value. So this one will be written in fourth row, okay, row number 4 because the indexing starts from 0, and first column. So this will be written in 4A, okay. So in 4A, this will write this particular value. So this is how this worksheet.write works. And this is the method that we are going to use in our process item function. Okay. So because if we come back, so this process item, this executes for every item. So from every item, we are going to take the values and write it using this worksheet.write. And finally, we need to call workbook.close. So workbook.close is suitable for close spider because that is going to execute only once when the spider is done processing. All right. So let's copy the code. Okay. So I'm simply going to copy this, and of course you can fine tune as much as you want. So this is my open spider, and in the close spider, I'm simply going to close this workbook. And this is what we have to do here, right? So now, first of all, we need to do, in fact, there are a lot of things that we need to do. So starting from the first thing, first of all, we need the initializer or the constructor. So depending on which kind of programming language background you are coming from, so I call it constructor because I come from the C family. So this is the constructor for me, or you can call it initializer, whatever, it doesn't matter. So why I'm doing it? Because this worksheet, okay, this workbook, we are going to access from a different methods. So these needs to be converted into attributes, right? So let's create some attribute. So self.worksheet and workbook. So I'm just going to set it to none. Self.workbook and worksheet. So the whole purpose is just to initialize these attributes, nothing else. We could have done it in the open spider as well, but that is not a good practice. So as a good practice, you should have this in the initializer. Now, whenever we want to execute, whenever we want to access worksheet, we'll simply access self.worksheet, okay, self.workbook, and our code should work perfectly fine. Yeah. So instead of directly accessing workbook variables, we'll use this attributes. We'll access these, class attributes. So that's it. Now let's run this. Okay, let's run this code and see that we are getting this written or not. Okay, but before that, we need to enable that in the pipeline. So this is how you enable it. Okay, so this is one way. Okay, so let's forget about the settings. Let's ignore this. So this is anyway there by default, right? So this is the format of item pipelines. Now this is one way where you give the entire name. So how it will be? It will be books.pipelines. What is the name of the class? Books pipeline. So this is one way, right? So now we have activated this item pipeline, and we are going to create this demo.xlsx. Now let's have some logging as well, we need to know when it is entering all these methods. So let's write some print statements, or actually writing print statements. Oh, there is this long message from Naman. Dynamic websites. Okay. So in fact, if you just go to my channel, right, let me show it to you. So /code recode. Okay. So whenever you go to this channel page, there is this search button here, right here. Okay. From here, you can search for dynamic, and you will have all these videos which are related to dynamic scraping, right? So how to handle a dynamic site. So these are all the videos. This is fun thing. Secondly, if you go to playlist, I've created one playlist only for web scraping dynamic sites. So here you will see multiple videos, multiple examples. So I can see that there are 7 videos which I have already posted. So Naman, one of these videos should help you understand. So basically the idea is same, that you have to, number one, try to find the API, or if API doesn't work, then you'll have to use Selenium or Splash to get that data. So you'll find all the examples here. All right. So let's come back to the code. Now we should not be using print here, right? Now, why you should not be using print? So for that also, I think I posted one video, logging, because print is not for everything. So watch this video and you will understand the point that I tried to make, that we should not be using print. So if we are not going to use the print, then how we are going to write the information? So we have this instance of spider. So what we can do is we can access the logger which is created by spider. So we can use spider.logger and we can write info messages or warnings or whatever, debug and all those things. So in process item, so this is the message that I'm writing in process item. Okay, now I'm just going to become a little bit lazy and going to copy paste this. Open spider. And let's paste this once more and close spider. So now it's very common to make typos. So let's see if I have made some typos or everything is working fine or not. So now again, this is a huge log. So let me do one thing. Let me clear this buffer and run this once more. Okay, so let's see. So I'm going to start. So this is the first useful message, info enabled item pipeline. So now we know that the settings which we changed is working. Then we have info in open spider. And what is the simple? So this is the name of the spider that we have created. So this is info in open spider. Okay. And then let's look at in process item, in process item, in process item, and so on. And we should have in close. So let's look at, let's try to find that here in close spider. So now we know that our method structure is working fine. Okay. Now the next challenge that we have is, in fact, it should have created this file. So yeah, it has created demo.xlsx. So let's open this file. Okay. So here is the file. And here we can see, yeah, there we go, that it has written this 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 in this cell A4, right? So this is what we did. Here we said that in row number 3, starting from 0 and column number 0, first column, go and write this. So this is working perfect. So now we know that our code is working. So I'm going to close this. Okay, now let's see what are the information that we have available. So here we have title and price. So these are the two things. Okay. And in the pipelines, we know that we have this item available. So we can directly read this information. So the price is going to be item.get price. Okay. So I'm not going to use square brackets so that if there is some problem, it should not break, right? So what is the difference between square brackets? So like this notation and get method. So if this key is not found, the square brackets notation will throw exception, while this get will give you none. Okay, so what is the second key? Price. Now here some copy pasting is good because, okay, here some copy pasting is good because you want to make sure that there are no typos. So I have my title and I have my price. So these are the two things which are readily available here. Now the next challenge is to insert them in one row at a time. Now for that, to increase the row, I need one more attribute. Okay. So I'm going to call this self.row, or let's call this current row. Now in Excel, they use 1, 2, 3. So let's use current row index and let's set it to 0. So this 0 is where we will be writing the headers. Okay. So we'll talk about how to write headers in just one moment. But before that, let's do one thing. Here we know that now we have this self.current row index and this is our row, right? So let's write this here, right? Now we need to write title and price. So we'll have to call this method 2 times. Okay. In 0, we are going to write this title. So first column will have title. In the second column, we will have price. Of course, I am overly simplifying everything. Okay, so there are much better ways to do everything, but let's stick to this one right now. And the next thing that we need to do is we need to increase this with 1. Okay. Now, so far, I hope everything is very easy, crystal clear. So let's run this. Okay, I'm going to clear everything. And let's run this spider once more. So we have debug and info, but no error messages. And demo.xlsx. And there we go. Very simple, right? We have this book titles, and we have this book information, the pricing information. So only with few lines, we were able to create this XLSX file. Now, the most important thing is to add some, in fact, we can improve it even further. See, in this case, we had only 2 fields, but typically we will have more than that, right? So typically we will have 5, 10, 20, 30. So we'll have a lot of fields. So we are not going to repeat this code. And anyway, as per good coding practices, if you see that if there is some code which is repeating, that means you need to change your approach. Okay, so let's change the approach. So what is the approach that we are going to do? See, first of all, we can see that it is increasing with 1, 0, 1. So we are going to replace this with a loop, right? Now, where is this loop going to run on? So this loop, now just a second, I'm going to read your message. Now a specific task that you are looking for help. So do one thing. So I'm not sure, like if you go to my site, which is coderecode.com. Okay, it's so cold here. My fingers are not working correctly. Code recode. So if you go to my site, there is this submit request section. So here you go. So there is this submit request section. So fill up this form and just leave all the details, and I'll see what I can do. Okay. All right. So where were we? Okay. So now we need to make this method even better, right? So we are going to run a loop. So where do we run this loop on? So what we can do is actually, see, the first thing that we want to do is, in this case, particularly this case, we are actually yielding a dictionary, right? But we may not be yielding a dictionary. We may be using item class or data classes, or like there are a couple of more formats which are available. So the first thing that we are going to do is we are going to make sure that this is actually a dictionary. And then we will run a loop over all the values in that dictionary. So how do we do that? So if you noticed, we have this import which is created automatically for item adapter. So what we are going to do is the first thing. So I'm going to delete this. See, the first thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to use this item adapter, and let's pass item. So this is going to give us adapter object, right? Now, what is the benefit? The benefit is that it doesn't matter whether the item is a dictionary, item class, data class, whatever it is, eventually we are going to get one single adapter which contains uniform methods to access all these things. So we could get adapter, we can simply replace it like that. Or instead of doing it, what I'm going to do is even better. Let's call adapter dot to, not to, as a dict. So this method, what it is going to do, it is going to return a dictionary. So guaranteed. So what is the benefit? The benefit is that no matter what kind of format you are using, what kind of object you are using, now it is guaranteed that you are going to get a class. So once you have a class, what you can do, very simple, you can run a loop over, let me show it to you. So in fact, let's do one more thing. In fact, if you look at dictionary.values, you will have values. And if you look at keys, you will have keys, right? So now this is your headers and this is the data that you want to write. So now you have access to both the data and the values, right? So what we are going to do, first of all, we are going to make a quick check about what is the current row index. Okay. So if current row index is 0, in that case, we will write the header, else we will write the values. Sounds okay? Sounds logical? Now, if you want to write the headers, in that case, let's create a variable. Yeah, so data, we extracted values, but in that case, let's put data as the dot keys. So what I'm going to do, or maybe, and let's not use data. Okay, let me change the name here. Values sounds better. So the data that I want to write is keys, and here the data that I want to write is actually the dot values. So now I can get rid of these two temporary variables, right? So if I am on current row index 0, in that case, I'm going to write the keys, which is actually the headers. Otherwise, I'm going to write this values. So now I have my data, so I can run a loop. So how do I run the loop? So now instead of directly running the loop, what I'm going to do is I'm going to use the enumerate. Okay. So for underscore in enumerate on data, right? So because this data, if you remember, this is not exactly going to be a list, but let's do that. So the first value is going to be the column, right? So this is going to be the column and this is going to be the actual data. And now I'm running out of the variables. Okay, so column and value. And this time let's put this line here, right? So this is my row index. Okay, row index doesn't change. Instead of 0, I will have column, not close column. And here I'll have value. Okay. And finally, we don't need these two specifically. We don't need this. We still need to increment this row index. Okay. I think now the code looks okay. So let me walk you through very quickly once again what we are doing here. Now a chat, or if you send links in chat, I'll lose access to that right now in the live video. And anyway, links are usually rejected by YouTube. I get a lot of notification when people send me links in the as a reply to the videos. I get a flash that someone sent a message. I open it and YouTube has deleted that. So I don't share links on YouTube. Anyway, so that's why I actually created that page specifically, that submit request, so that you can freely send the links. But of course, the condition is that I will reply only when I have the time. Okay. So sometimes I can guide you quickly, or at other times. Let's see. Okay. So coming back here, so we created an adapter object and we got this a dictionary. Now, what we are doing here is we are checking if the current row index is 0. In that case, we are going to write the keys. Otherwise, we are going to write the values. Now we are running a loop. Now from the loop, we are writing this current row index. We are writing column, which is this value, and the actual value. So this value can be header or it can be the actual data which is being written. So now we are not using column names. So now this is generic. So you can use it in any of the projects. So in fact, this pipeline has become so now this pipeline has perfectly become very generalized. So there is no specific mention of any hard-coded value. Let's see. So let me remove this demo.xlsx that we created, and let's run the spider. Okay. Do I have errors? No errors. So let's open this demo.xlsx, and there we go. So we have title and we have price. And the beauty is that now you can reuse this. Okay. So now you can reuse this pipeline in any of your project and you will get XLSX file. Now, if you want to enhance it even further, so what you can do is you can move this hard-coded file name. So this is the only thing which is hard-coded, right? So that also you can move to your settings file, right? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut this file. Let's go to settings. So settings, in settings, I'm going to create, let's say, XLSX file. Now, how do I read this in my spider? How do I read this in the pipeline? So in the pipeline, we have one more method. Okay. So this method is actually a class method. Okay. And this is called from crawler. Okay. And it's a class method. So we'll have to decorate this with class method. Now this from crawler will accept the CLS. Okay. And it will accept this crawler. Now what is the beauty? The beauty of this method is that from crawler object, we can get these settings. So if we can get these settings, then we can use this particular get method to read this settings file, this particular settings. So there we go. Okay. So this is our file name, right? So now it has become dynamic, but we are not yet done actually, because this is a class method. So we need to return the instance of the class. Okay. So in this class, what we are going to do is we are going to set one attribute. So this attribute name can be file name or XLSX name, whatever, XLSX name. Okay. So this attribute will have to send it to the initializer. Okay. And we need to add one more attribute, and this is going to be XLSX name. Now we can use this attribute here. Okay. Let's verify that everything is working correctly. So actually what I should have done is don't save, close, and let's change these settings. So in settings, instead of demo, let's call this demo2.xlsx, and let's run this. Now we have demo2.xlsx. And we have the same information. Now, of course, we have not made use of any formatting or anything. So that also you can do. So basically you'll have to go through this documentation. Okay. So in this documentation, you will find some information about this format class. Okay. So what you have to do is you'll have to, in the initializer, you'll have to create some formats. Okay. And you'll have to set something like, let's say, cell format. You added one cell format to the workbook and you set it to bold, font color to red. And in the write method, you can pass this cell format as the fourth parameter. So if you want, I can go and show it to you, but I think this should be enough. Rest of the things you can figure it out. One more thing that I wanted to share with you is actually that I have not been able to post videos because I was working on a complete redesign, re-recording of all the courses. The complete Scrapy course, I have actually redesigned it, re-recorded all the videos. These are all the recordings that I have already done. Okay. So starting from Scrapy installation to basic commands, then how to create these single spider, right? And then these selectors. So I've created one entire selection, one entire selectors, one section on selector CSS selectors. The next section is on XPath. Okay, this logging videos I've already shared with you on YouTube, so this you know. Okay, then I've talked about Scrapy architecture and I've simplified everything. So how to understand Scrapy architecture. Okay, I've talked about headers here, how we can export. So like this section is basically a real life example where I've worked with Amazon. Okay, I've talked about items, how to clean up the data, and input processor, output processor, everything. Post request I've covered in detail. So this entire section is about HTTP GET and POST. Okay, then this section is about pagination. Okay, so crawl spiders, cleaning up data, the different exports, right? How you can export from using images and files. This Excel, this is also from that course. So I just redesigned it for today's live. How to debug, how to bypass bands, okay? How to deploy it to cloud, how to rotate proxies. So like I've covered Zite proxies, Scraper API, these two in details for now. I'll add more in detail. Splash. Yeah, so these are the videos which I've already recorded. I've already edited most of them, but not all of them. So that is still work in progress. But I'm expecting that in a week or so it should be done. Okay, so probably yeah, by the end of this month I'll make this publicly available. Meanwhile, if you have already purchased the master course on Scrapy, so the existing course, if you have already purchased, then you are going to get free access to this course. And for those of who are actually looking for a systematic framework, then this course can be a good solution, a good starting point, right? Because you are going to get everything from installing to deploying this on the cloud. And I'll be adding more videos as we are talking about practical scenarios. I'll add practical scenarios. So that's where I have been extremely busy. So all of my time is actually going into this course. So that's all. That's all for today. So I'll share more updates on the course as I make it ready. Okay. So that's all for now. Even if you're watching the replay, let me know your comments. If you want anything new to be added in the course, so let me know that also. So that's all. See you next time.